Simmons, Commissioner Lance, and one other commissioner.
Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Simmons, Commissioner Lance.
The vice mayor she's running just a few minutes behind, I believe, but she will be here.
And actually, I didn't hear from Lance. I heard from Simmons and Smith.
Yeah, I got an email from Lance.
Okay.
Later this afternoon. But anyway, the city manager and I chatted, and she really wanted to have this workshop because there's some information that the city needs to be on top of. So I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca now, and then we'll begin our workshop. And let's see, I will satisfy that First Amendment to the Constitution at the end of the workshop.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. Yes, normally we do not rush a workshop through. However, you have a resolution on the agenda tonight in regards to bond financing for this particular project. And it's big enough, and when you talk about a city's drinking water, it's very important that the commission understands how we got to this point and where we're going forward. Again, I feel really good about the quality of our drinking water, the quality of the staff we have that oversee and manage our drinking water, and I will continue to lift up that we brought this forward. It wasn't that Eagle came in and found something. It was that we brought it forward because we're incredibly proactive about any and all work that we do at the Verona Water Treatment Facility. And I think that you'll hear more about that. So I get to, first of all, I get to introduce you to our new DPW director, Steve Skowski. He, welcome to the city. We're going to work through this really large project, and I'm really grateful that a lot of his experiences from the city of Kalamazoo are around water. So he's going to help us through that. But he also has a very good support person in Perry Hart, and I will let Steve introduce Perry, and then Perry is going to walk you through the presentation. You should all have that on your iPads. You also received it in an email. And we'll go from there. Informal, because we want to make sure that this is educational and informing to the commission, as well as to our residents, and that we will continue to take questions as needed. So, Steve.
Hello. Thanks for having me. This is my first commission meeting, so I am going to turn it over to Perry Hart to do the workshop. Thanks for having us, and hope you get everything you need. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Commission. I've actually advanced it unintentionally.
What'd you do?
It disappeared. There we go. Okay, just in starting here, our Verona well field is our only source of water for the city of Battle Creek and the surrounding townships that we serve. City of Emmett, Penfield Township, or the city of Springfield, Emmett Township, and Leroy Township, along with the city. So the goals of this workshop is to tell you how we got to where we are, how did we get to a significant deficiency violation notice, the details of the significant violation notice, details of the administrative consent order that we intend to enter into with Eagle, how we plan on financing this project and the flexibility that is provided in the financing, and then the commission's authorization and what is being asked of you folks. The asset that we're protecting is our Verona well field. We have 22 functioning wells located in 3 adjacent well fields. 3 of these wells are in the Bailey Park area. 36 through 44, another set of wells are in the original Verona well field located near the water treatment plant. And then the remainder of the wells that were installed after the discovery of the Thomas solvent contamination plume are in the new well field. They are our highest producing wells, and they were installed to replace the wells that we had to give up because of their proximity to contamination and to expand the treatment facilities. Plus, some of those wells were used, they were converted into remediation wells, so they were part of the fix from the Thomas solvent issue. How did we get here? Wells were installed over several decades, starting in the 30s all the way through to the 90s. There was common construction in all of them as they've been installed in a rock aquifer. It's this Marshall sandstone aquifer. They had very common construction materials, but they have had different and varied pumping patterns over the lifetime of these wells. Well pump and maintenance of these wells was done basically by a calendar or by the hours they were operated. There wasn't a program in place where they were tested to see if they were working within an efficient manner or close to the pumping curve. Advancement in technology has allowed us to do inspections on wells by video. We now have the capability, as you see in this photo, of removing the pumping equipment from the well and running a video camera all the way down the well to actually visually inspect the inside of the casing. If you picture the casing as a large straw going down 50 to 150 feet, we then insert the well inside that casing. Our casings are all 16 inches in diameter with the exception of the ones over in Bailey Park. We also were very fortunate to hire a very experienced pump and well maintenance person. He is now chief operator at a Verona pumping station, and he understands this infrastructure better than I could ever dream of doing so. He had a 30-year career in Jackson. He's been in the water industry for, I think, 5 years longer than me, and I'm sneaking up on 40 years. So between the two of us, we can put a lot of stuff together. Casing conditions discovered during the well repairs. We had a vendor replacing a well, all new parts, and when the well was out, they dropped the video camera down it, and that's where we first saw indications that the casings were not in the condition that we believed they would be. You can't see these things from the ground level. You can't look from the outside in. The only way you can see them is with a video. Water quality concerns, we started seeing water quality that was indicating some influence of water from the upper aquifer. That is the groundwater, the precipitation, any water that snow melt. Those kind of organics were starting to show up in our water, which also increased concern. So we determined that the need and method for the evaluation process of the casings, we hired a well and pump company to remove the well or the pump, just like we're doing in this video, and drop the video camera. Now, we were successful in doing that. It did identify areas of concern, and in the summer of 2022, we were able to do all 22 wells and get a good idea as to where we were at with improving these assets. Examples of the current well conditions. These are photos that I've captured from the videos we have. Here you see somewhere down the well, this is only at 50 feet, the casing has deteriorated to a point where portions of it are missing. The blackish area at the top of this photo is actual metal casing. You see the next layer of white, that is considered neat cement. It's used to grout the outside of the casing between the outside diameter of the casing pipe and the interior diameter of the borehole that goes down into the aquifer. And then the light beige you see at the bottom of the picture is actually the sandstone aquifer. That is the very porous material underground that allows us to draw a significant amount of water and creates the tremendous aquifer that we utilize. Here's another example. This is up at, is that 37 feet or 97? 37. Yeah, I thought that was 37. So I'm illustrating the fact that we have issues at 90 feet and all the way up to 37 feet. This next one is a picture of the Marshall sandstone. And we believe, we can't be 100% certain, that that dark object is a part of a casing that has fallen down the borehole and is sitting on a little ledge of the Marshall sandstone. These things have self-destructed, and different stages, different ages, different uses have caused differences in all of them. This is down at 90 feet. It's very obvious that we have a fracture in the casing. We believe the light gray in that crevasse is the grouting on the outside of the casing. The casing is almost polished from water rushing in at that level, and that is down at 90 feet. So we're seeing these failures at all levels. So this has led to the reporting we did and led to us receiving a significant notice, or significant deficiency notice, violation notice back in December, on December 20th. That kind of started the clock going. We had 30 days to respond to that. Rebecca has provided them a letter stating what our plans are to remedy the situation we're in. We got to that point by, as Rebecca stated, self-reporting the situation we were in. We felt that we are a limited treatment groundwater system. We were starting to see organics show up in our water that shouldn't have been there. We've increased sampling. We've worked with Eagle to do the appropriate sampling. We're actually doing some water sampling and testing now that is consistent with surface water plants. That's going to be expected of us until we get these casings replaced with solid casings and become a limited treatment facility again. So the reason we were given this notice of deficiency is there are three components, three sections of the Safe Drinking Water Act that we have to comply with. I've condensed them as much as I can here. Rule 325-10-807 is that well shall be protected against water-bearing formations and prevent all known sources of contamination from entering the well. We can't say that we're doing that because of the fractures in the casing being in the unconfined aquifer. We can't identify what's flowing in at that level. We do know that we have flow in at that level. So without being able to positively identify that, I have to agree with Eagle that we are in non-compliance with this rule. Second rule is location of a well in the area subject to flooding. An opening into a well casing shall be 2 feet above the 100-foot floodplain or the highest recorded flood. Our wells are situated in that way if their casings were intact. But with holes in the casing below those levels, we are not compliant with that rule. Well casings and rock formations must have adequate protection material above the aquifer, no evidence of aquifer contamination, and no direct flow from surface or near surface sources to the rock aquifer. I wish I could have found it. We have 22 wells videoed. Some of them take close to an hour to watch. There is one spot in one of our wells where the camera is being buffeted around in the casing by inflow from the groundwater in the area. It's rather alarming.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely, you
Okay.
are welcome to interrupt me anywhere along the line.
So I think I understand how well water works and things like that, but I just want to make sure that I'm thinking in the right direction. Aquifers, and I know this is one of the largest aquifers in the state of Michigan that we get our drinking water from. But to prevent from outside contaminants, which we're saying is rainwater and other outside contaminants, I guess I'd just say that and make it easier. Where the sandstone and the rock filters that from allowing it to get down into the aquifer from a certain depths. Is that what we're talking about here? Because the casing is cut or got holes in it at a higher level. It's bypassing those natural filtering sources. Is that what I'm
Commissioner
listening to?
O'Donnell, I think my next slide is going to answer that question quite succinctly.
Okay.
So this is just a basic water cycle slide that I've added comments to. If you see on that, the white area of that casing pipe below the well highest up on the hill, I'm pointing to where 2 areas of holes in the casing could exist. Those layers above what is identified as the confined aquifer is Mother Nature's filtering system. Those layers will clean that water up. But the water underneath that confining layer is not affected greatly by surface. That is why it produces a great quantity of water and a very high quality of water. A lot of residential wells don't go to that depth. We're very fortunate where our well field is located. We can reach that confined aquifer anywhere from 50 to 100 feet down. We just need to improve these casings. And you can see in this drawing that if we have casings in that unconfined aquifer between the surface and the confined aquifer, and we get a heavy rainfall, right now the Eagles has us doing additional testing if we get a rain event of 2 inches or more, because we see those types of constituents show up in our raw water that are present in rainfall. That indicates that we have those casings. And if we are running a well, a high production well, adjacent to one of these wells that is not pumping, it's creating the soda straw effect, where we're drawing water from above the confined aquifer into the confined aquifer and pumping it up in another pump. So this is an urgent matter. We need to get it addressed.
Well, thank you. That answers a little bit to what's
Good.
going on. It's,
Details to the significant deficiency violation notice. City self-reported, we're going to say that frequently. It was one of the best decisions we've ever made, is to get this out in front before other means got a hold of it and brought it to our attention. We did so by providing Eagle the inspection videos, sample results, and a summary of all the well conditions. This line I've put quotes and an underline on it as it comes directly from the significant deficiency. And it says this is a significant deficiency and urgently needs to be corrected. Structural deficiencies apparent in several, if not all, 22 wells. These conditions may be or could allow contamination to enter our raw water, our water source. And if we're not treating for surface water, we could miss contaminants going out into the public. So that just adds to the urgency of this. Left uncorrected, significant deficiencies increase the risk to the public of drinking contaminated or unsafe water. It's not what I'm in this business to do. Left uncorrected, repeat. Correction of significant deficiencies is required within 120 days of us receiving the letter on December 20th. Going through the regulations of drilling new wells, getting permitting, hydrogeological studies, bidding, award of a contract, this is all going to take and has taken more than 120 days. There was no way we were going to get it done in that time frame. So working with Eagle, we've agreed to enter an administrative consent order. Department of Public Works, my peers and I, and Eagle have been meeting together on a regular basis to come up, and we've edited and come up with a draft that we can both agree on the administrative consent order. It is currently in review by Eagle. We expect it hopefully by the end of this week. It's our intent to review it in-house and share it with the other parties that are involved. There are several parties involved at our Verona water treatment plant. Details on administrative consent order. DPW staff's been working with several parties to coordinate the work needed at Verona. I've listed some of them here. The VWFG has been around since the early to mid 80s. They are the group that is responsible for the remediation going on to protect our drinking water from the Thomas Sullivan plume. We work closely with Eagle's hydrogeologists, management, engineering, and regulatory staff in the negotiating to see that we can come up with a time frame where we can accomplish this work, get us back in compliance, and avoid any additional fines. There has been no fines to date, and we hope to keep it that way. We call out a separate division of Eagle. Beth Mead O'Brien is a senior project manager with the Remediation and Redevelopment Division at Eagle. She has been involved with the entire CN Railroad and Thomas Solvent contamination deal since almost its beginning. She got on board very shortly after that started. She's a wealth of knowledge and has great concern for Battle Creek's drinking water. Love having her on this team. InSafe used to be known as Progressive. It's an engineering firm out of Tampa, Florida. They have been the operators of all of the remediation wells. Their job is to operate their remediation equipment in concert with us running our wells. So they have to be intimately involved with what we're doing, because if we're pumping 11 million gallons a day, they got to provide protection for 11 million gallons a day. If we're only doing 8, they need to back theirs off to 8. They work in concert with us. They have availability to our operators. They get information via digital means, so they can see, they know when we have a power outage, because they need to adjust what they're doing too. The ACO is an agreement between the city and the state that defines what needs to be done to correct current conditions and any other system deficiencies. There is a looming deadline ahead. April 19th, we have to have the ACO executed. That means signed by Rebecca and by Eric Oswald, who is in charge of the drinking water division at Eagle.
What's our average demand right now for water?
We're hovering between 9 and 10 million gallons a day. We will see it ramp up. We've been reviewing max days. We've seen them as high as 17 and 19 million a day, but that's very intermittent. And InSafe has backed off their equipment a bit because they had too large of equipment for our operating range. With proposals for development to the east of us here, we see demand increasing. InSafe will be required by a consent order that we have with them to max out their protection as our demand increases. DPW team has and will continue to negotiate with Eagle on the schedule of the work defined in the ACO. The ACO is a binding contract with requirements of the city and possible fines for not meeting those requirements. It is a contract. DPW will continue to work with Eagle to avoid any of those fines. There has been a lot of flexibility exhibited by Eagle. They're saying that, you know, they understand the situation we're in. They're working very well with us. They're saying that if, you know, supply chain is a challenge right now. If we're trying to put new casings in the ground but can't get a hold of parts and pieces to do so, all we have to do is stay in communications with the Eagle. They have told us straight out that they're going to allow us to be flexible in our construction timeline based on delivery times of components such as that or any other unforeseen thing that comes and gets in our way.
That was what I was going to bring up, is how is our supply chain? What are we looking at for, I know we're not going to make the deadline that we're doing, but construction right now is at an all-time high with not as many workers, but not as few parts and pieces.
That weighs much more heavily in street construction, water mains, things of that nature. Water withdrawals are being closely monitored. So this type of work isn't suffering as greatly in the supply chain area, but we still expect challenges. We're taking certain steps. You'll see some of it later in this program where we are making logical decisions to keep it on track.
Is there a way that you can, I don't know if you're short workers or people or resources, or how is there a way that we can convert some of our resources to help you get completed quicker or something in that nature? I mean, I'm just.
As commissioners, you're going to have your opportunity this evening.
Okay. One other quick question. Is there other communities that are facing these exact same problems with their casings?
There have been. Eagle has shared that there are at least 2 other communities that were dealing with a similar situation. They're not at liberty to identify who they are.
I understand. I just, what I'm thinking is there other problems with the same type of casing from the manufacturer? Is this natural, time-consuming that's causing these fractures and breakage in the casings, that type of thing? Or is that something we'll find out later, what's actually causing this? That's why I asked if other communities are having the same situation.
It's going to be very difficult to answer that because of the length of time between the first casing and the last. We're talking from the early 30s into the 90s. Material changed. I've been in the water industry for a long time. I'm fully aware that metal products used in the water industry shortly after World War II were trash. They did not last their expected lifetime at all. Yet we've got water mains in this city that were installed in 1889 that are still functioning just fine. So it's installation method, it's material that was used. The 3 wells over in Bailey Park are sand cast, meaning they were manufactured in a sand cast process, just like you pour an ingot of gold.
Yeah, you poured it in and then it burns up, makes the casing for hold the.
Correct.
Yeah, like it is sand in it, wears off over time. One more thing I was going to ask is the technology has changed. I was even talking about this year with the snowfall. We've had so much snowfall that it's been one of the close to like 3rd or 4th highest year of snowfall, but we can't tell because we have such great plowing and technology of when to remove and remediate the snow. Is the same thing going to be with the casings? These are 21st century casings of sort that defeat some of the downfalls of the older technology?
That was looked into. Our first conversations with Eagle was to see if there was any way we'd be allowed to line the existing casings. That would have been the shortest route to resolving this issue. There are some conditions with water quality and the Thomas Solvent situation where the state would not approve lining. There's also some instances that have become evident with the videos that we did. perfectly installed casing would extend the entire depth. Say we were at 197 feet. The annular space between the outside diameter of that casing and the borehole that was actually created in the Earth's surface to put that casing in would be 100% filled with neat cement. We're not finding that to be the case. Well drillers had the ability to set 10 feet of neat cement at the bottom of their casing, move up 50 feet, put a device in that would block the neat cement from going down any further, pour another 10 feet there, work their way up, they left gaps. There's no way of identifying those accurately enough. There's no point in chasing the well driller that put these wells in the ground. We're doing what we can by replacing them. It was determined.
No,
to be
so I
best.
mean, if we replace them, this is like the best stuff that research over time has put in for new well casings.
Yeah, the well contractors that will be hired to drill these wells will be evaluated. We're going to be meeting with one that will likely compete for this in the next week or so. They will be qualified in every way possible, and they will be using the casings that are specified by our engineering firm. They will be required to purchase the exact casing that is, or an equal. If they can provide an equal that meets the muster of our engineering firm, we'd allow that to be installed, but we are going to be quite critical of it. I mean, casing life should be 50 years. The ones that went in the 30s have given us 50 plus.
They've given us many more. Yeah, I'm totally understand.
The ones that were in the
It's-
90s, not so much.
Yeah. Just to wonder, the different types of technology and product at the time when we had to use that. That's why I was just trying to get a little history and then find out when we do the work, it's going to be way beyond standard. It's going to be,
We certainly will hold it to the highest possible standard.
yeah.
There are guidelines and expectations both by the 10 state standards, Eagle, and ourselves. One technology that has changed dramatically since most of those wells were installed is how the borehole is created. It's now generally done with a rotary bit. In the past, it was done by dropping a big weight down the hole and breaking the sandstone. And in that, you can create large voids so that when you start putting that neat cement into the annular space, you hit one of those voids and it's going to take cement trucks to get it filled. And by doing that, you might be blocking off some of the efficiency of the well. So the drilling method will, in itself, create a better well and a more sound casing.
Thank you.
In getting the deadline of April 19th and getting the parts that are needed for this, what is your estimated time that this would be completed? Are we talking 1 week or 60 days after that, or?
Oh, no, it's going to be much longer than that, Commissioner Ballard. The April 19th date is the date we have to have the agreement in place. And then there is a date, I believe it was 30 days after execution of the ACO, we have to have begun work. Well, beginning work can be considered creating specifications, getting out to bid. We're going to work very quickly to get those things in place within 30 days of April 19th so that we meet the requirements of the administrative consent order. Getting parts and pieces, we don't know what kind of time frame that's going to be. We don't expect it to be as bad as water mains right now, but there's not a lot of this type of work going on in the water industry. There is in petroleum, different ball
And
wax.
there's also environmental permits and other things that have to be completed.
And a lot of that has been
Timely
worked
manner.
on up front here.
Okay.
We've got a lot of that underway. Our engineering firm has hired a consultant from his competing engineering firm because that gentleman has 30 years, 40 years of experience in this well field, and he has been able to help us get through the hurdles of meeting the regulations of Eagle and various other demands that come with trying to get wells replaced. We do benefit that we are replacing in kind. We are not increasing capacity, and we are doing it as locally as possible. One of the biggest challenges is separation distances. Wells have to be so many feet from property lines, roadways, known contaminants, and our well field is between CN National Railroad and the Battle Creek River. It's just in a great spot. You have potential contaminants, but it is a highly productive aquifer and area. Eagle has shown a willingness, I think I've shared that, to work with us in accomplishing goals and avoiding these extra financial burdens. So, Commissioner Ballard, we're going to do this in phases, and I've got a couple slides involving that.
Thank you.
Phase one will define the initial set of wells that will be capable of meeting daily demand. We plan on, with financing and an executed ACO, we plan to move quickly into phase one. Work plan in the ACO defines the actions of both the city and its contractors. The ACO will have a Gantt chart saying with estimations as to how quickly phase one will move along. We haven't received that Gantt chart. Our engineering firm is preparing that for us. Project design, specifications, advertising, bid opening, and award will all follow the ACO. We'll begin well drilling in the northern end of the well field. That's where we anticipate to get the highly productive wells. The wells that are currently there are our most productive, and they are also the furthest away from known contaminants. Beneficial to be there. This will also give us the ability to meet any high demands we hit if this is a hot, dry summer. If we can get those wells in early enough, get them approved by Eagle and connected to our collection system so we can get the water to our treatment facilities, we'll be able to meet the high demands. We still have the south well field to meet those demands should we need to go there. Utilizing pumping equipment from existing wells in the new wells is a cost savings. The experienced operator I spoke of earlier has worked diligently for the last 5-6 years on replacing wells based on pump testing. By doing so, he's got new pumps inside old wells. So as we create these new wells, it's our intent to just move the recently refurbished, rebuilt well from one casing to the other. That is a tremendous cost savings. It actually knocks down the replacement cost by at least 20% on most of the wells. So it's been very beneficial and a great cost savings. This is kind of the process of getting a well from we need a well to we have a well. Test wells, well development, conversion to production wells, and permitting for either a single or a small group of wells all have to be done in steps with Eagle. We cannot use the water from a well until it's gone through all these steps and Eagle has given us their blessing. Then it can be connected to our collection system when you have a new well in service.
Can you explain just the test well?
Test well is the initial borehole. We will have a contractor create a borehole, drop a casing down, and they go through a number of tests on that well. Those tests are going to involve productivity, water quality, several other components of the water we're getting out of that well, its ability to maintain capacity. Once all those tests have been confirmed, then they can go into well development, which is a process of developing the rock area around the inlet of the well. We don't have screens. We're kind of unique in a rock aquifer. We have that straw going down and it just opens up to the cavernous area down below. Mm-hmm. So they will do what they need to do to develop and get the max productivity out of that well. That's considered the development of the well. And after all of those things are in place, water quality has been approved, then we have the permit from Eagle to be able to put the infrastructure in place to pump out of that well and tie it back into our collection system. That is the final step of permitting to get a new well developed and connected to the system.
Thank you.
Project phasing phase 2. Shampoo bottle covers it, rinse and repeat. We're doing the same thing in phase 2.
Yeah.
Phase 2 is the number of wells, it's going to be determined by the number of wells we're able to accomplish with the first phase. First phase is based on the $10 million bonding we're requesting. There is a slim possibility that we could knock out all 22 for that 10 mil. Slim, very slim. We expect it to go beyond that. Phase 2 installations will follow the same process of test wells, well development, the whole thing that we just described. Phase 2 will utilize an amendment in the original ACO. This is one place where the Eagle is showing us a bit of grace. They're not forcing us into a situation where we have to sign off on the ACO that says exactly what we're going to do in phase 2. They're going to allow us an amendment so we can use what we learned in phase 1 and apply it to phase 2 if there's a need for phase 2. They are working tremendously well with us on this. We also hope to address all the abandoned wells. That initial slide, I forgot to mention that. The ones that are in black, you've got it in your handouts. The ones that are in black text are wells that are in use. The gray text are wells that are either being used in remediation or are no longer in use. Those wells that are no longer in use are empty soda straws down to the aquifer we're trying to protect. So we're going to attempt to include abandonment and plugging of those wells as part of this project. Just further safeguards the drinking water source that we have. Once all the wells are improved and all the other deficiencies have been addressed, the water system for the city of Battle Creek will be in compliance once again. Well replacement financial plan. Aaron's here as my backup. Municipal bonding for 10 mil, that's on the agenda this evening. We hope to use drinking water revolving loan funds. That application is in place. We had applied for this drinking water financing for the well field and treatment improvements. We did not qualify with the first round of scoring. We're in a unique situation here because the scoring procedure that was used for this round was outdated. It was from the 80s. Eagle and state legislature has just recently adopted a new scoring procedure, which is much more efficient and, I hope, more broad. The application was completed prior to the realization that we had holes in our casings. So our first go at getting revolving loan fund money didn't have as many deficiencies as we were aware of, and had we been aware, we would have more likely scored higher and probably got financing. But funding phase one with dwarf funding would have delayed us getting started, which jeopardizes our public health risk. It just does. We got to get started on this as soon as we can. This is the water we serve 55,000 people. Financing for phase two has been added to our current application for DWS RF, Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. Application has been submitted. Determination of approvals expected in September. When I initially typed this up, and this is one of the edits I made after this was done, I cannot honestly say that it has been submitted. It is in the process. We're putting the finishing touches on it because we had to add this amendment. We should have it submitted shortly. Does not change the expected answer date of September 2023. We should know by then whether or not we qualified for this low interest financing. The updated submission of the DWRS SRF includes lead service lines. This scores points. Points is what we need to qualify for this financing. By including lead service lines, we increase this. Consideration for being a disadvantaged community. If we qualify, this almost sounds like an oxymoron. If we qualify as being a disadvantaged community, we're guaranteed 9% loan forgiveness for whatever dollar amount we end up with. Don't have to pay that part back. So our engineering firm is working closely with us and getting all the data together to try meet that qualification. All of these things, the fact that we are in we've had a significant deficiency notice and an ACO also improve our scoring. So we're optimistic that we're going to meet the threshold to get financing from the state on this. And this is the Build Back Better infrastructure improvement money that's coming out of the federal government. It's being funneled down to utilities through the revolving loan funds, both on the drinking water side and the clean water side, which is the wastewater.
So I had a question about the financing. So we're doing the $10 million bond, but then on top of that, I'll be honest, I don't know if, like you said, is it enough? Who knows? But this other funding that you're looking at, will that be able to allow it so we don't need another bond, or we're getting loans and low interest loans, or can you explain it just a little bit more?
Sure. Based on the rate study we did in 2021, we were looking at improvements at Verona that would include some improvements on wells, but a majority of the work we had, I believe it was 10 million in wells and 15 million at a treatment facility. So we had 25 million we built into the current rate study. With what we have discovered now, we have to concentrate on the source water. We have to push that treatment improvement a little bit further down the road. I went over numbers with Kurt here, who is in charge of our capital improvement plan, and we readily found the improvements that we had built into the rate structure that goes from 2021 to 2026. We didn't get a lot of that work done because of current economy and, quite honestly, because of COVID. There wasn't enough, people weren't doing as much. So there's some unspent money we have available. We tallied it up up to just slightly over 2 million. 3 million this afternoon? 20 million, that's what I thought. $20 million that was destined to be water treatment and fiber optics and controls and new electrical wires through the well field. As we incorporate those things into this project, we feel we can get it done less expensively and underneath that budget line, with the only downfall is possibly having to push the treatment component of that into the next rate period, which will be coming into place July 1 of either 26 or 27. Does that answer?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. Jill, we conferred with Jill when we were getting into these, you got to sign this, ACOs and things of this nature. She reviewed them, felt that this should be reviewed by an environmental attorney. We all agreed. Went out, we found Mr. Michael Caldwell of Zosmer. He has been on one of our meetings. He's met with Jill. He's going to review the ACO to make sure that we are not extending or sticking our neck out, literally, in what we agreed to. And he's also going to make sure that we're meeting all the environmental components and coordinating the efforts. We have provided him with all of the past consent decrees. There are 3 of them that are involved with the cleanup and Superfund and the Thomas Sullivan thing and the Verona Wellfield Group. We have to abide by all of those previous consent orders while we take care of this one. Glad to have him on board. Doesn't come cheap.
Perry, thank you very much. Are there any questions of Perry at this time, commissioners?
One more slide. One more slide, Mayor.
One more,
One more? I'm
if I
sorry.
may, because
sorry.
this one counts right on you folks.
One more.
We need approval for the municipal bonding for phase 1 to get this project off the ground. Approval of the, approved to execute the ACO. As I said, stated earlier, city manager Rebecca Fleury has to sign that, so does Eric Oswald of Eagle. That has to be done by April 19th. We're going to get it on one of the next commission meetings. We are required to enter into the ACO. There isn't an option here. We say no to the ACO, and we are in deeper debt with Eagle. We will be under more deficiencies. We will be in non-compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act, and there will be monetary fines. The best action we can take is approving that ACO. Now, Rebecca asked a question of me earlier. We've got it posted here. I think I've answered it.
Yes, Ted and I went through the presentation, and, a question came up for us is about how does the project affect utility rates? And I think Commissioner O'Donnell asked the question, so please know it. We're going to utilize what was already included in the current rate study and just push off the nanofiltration at the plant to be able to address the casings now.
Thank you. I did have one question about the bond funding. Is that bond funding like self-funded through the city, or is there like a firm that's taking care of the bond?
I'm going to step aside.
Aaron.
Hey,
So Aaron has some talking points that he has for the agenda tonight, but I think that he can answer your question.
oh, okay.
The city is working with PFM, our municipal bond advisor, to, as well as bond counsel, to conduct the sale of bonds externally. So, PFM goes through a bidding process where they vet potential bidders on the financing. So it's not self-funded by the city.
I just wondered how we were funding that, if it was, well, I mean, it's not really kind of self-funded, we're just going to do outsourcing of the selling of the bonds for
Right.
investment purposes, things like that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions of Perry or Rebecca?
I do have a question, Mayor. So just so that the public has knowledge, is the water safe to use,
Yes.
drink?
We are testing it as
To-
required for an unlimited, or for a limited treatment facility. We are making sure all of those tests are met. We are doing additional testing. We're testing for turbidity. We're testing for, we've actually tested for cryptosporidium, which is not required of a groundwater system. We have made sure that the water we are producing at Verona and putting out into our distribution system meets and exceeds the Safe Drinking Water Act at this time.
Thank you.
Any other questions, please?
I guess it's more of like operations, so is that each well is getting tested individually, and if there's something not right in one of them, it's shut down till it's remediated properly?
Yes. After a 2-inch event, we will take samples from all 22 wells and do the appropriate testing on them. We've actually had to take this to a outside lab because we aren't equipped to do this level of testing as a groundwater facility. It's unfortunate. Every time it rains 2 inches, it costs us $893. But it gives us the confidence that the water we're providing our customers and those of our neighboring communities meets every need it should. It's been involved, quite involved.
Thank you for your help in this situation.
Well, I'd like to thank you for your time, your interest, and your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Perry.
Thanks, Perry.
Any other questions of Rebecca? Rebecca, thank you for a good presentation. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners.
Persistent.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks. All right, we have 45 minutes before the meeting. There are sandwiches in the conference room.